don't want a wife who cheats on me. Oh, actually, you've been betraying your family for years. I can never trust you again.
I went home for the first time in a long time and was having a good time with my family. At Formosa's back, however, a small conversation led to the revelation that my mom was having an affair. Dad got furious, and the atmosphere immediately became tense. What will happen to my family now? My name is Elias Cooper. My mom was a housewife, and my dad was an office worker. Even though my dad was a businessman, he was an executive in a big company. Thanks to that, our family was wealthy. I was able to lead a comfortable life. Even as a child, I knew that my dad was a great person. I was somewhat proud of him. The family got along very well, and even the neighbors said that we were a close-knit family. I never doubted it. However, when I was in the 3rd grade, my dad was to be transferred overseas. My mom was also going with him. However, if this were the case, I would have to transfer to a new school. I didn't want to leave my friends, so my dad decided to go alone. I was sad to be away from my dad, but I couldn't do anything about it because it was for work. Fortunately, I could contact him via phone or email. He came back once or twice a year. I was automatically excited whenever I saw him. I eventually became a high school student and was studying hard to go to college. The college I wanted to go to was 2 hours away from my house. I could go there from home if I wanted to, but it would be hard to spend 4 hours a day commuting to and from school. If I passed the admission exam, I was to be permitted to live alone. When I was depressed because I did not get good grades in the mock exams, I pictured myself leading a free life by myself. That's how I stayed motivated. I was able to get into the college of my first choice without any problems. I thought that the college life I had always dreamed of was waiting for me. But suddenly, my mom told me something shocking.
To tell you the truth, your dad's business is not going well. We don't have much money. That's why we can't send money to you.
I had no idea that my dad's business was in a slump. I couldn't help but be surprised. She told me that the tuition and enrollment fees would be fine, but I would have to earn my own living expenses. As soon as I moved in, I looked for a part-time job. I narrowed down my search to places that paid well per hour. I decided to get a part-time job as a teacher in a cram school, so I liked kids, and I was attracted by the fact that I could make use of my knowledge. I guess it was because they were short on staff. I was hired right away and started working. I had to earn money for my living expenses. I had to work many shifts. I wanted to work 5 days a week. The personnel at my part-time job was anxious that I would be unable to handle it. But if I didn't, I couldn't make ends meet. When I started college, I found it much harder than I expected to balance my studies and my part-time job. I had an image that college students spent time hanging out. But there were more classes to take than I had expected, and I also had to study a certain amount. Furthermore, the teaching approach in my part-time work was group instruction. The teacher would need to write on the board while teaching the class, similar to how it is done in school. This was unexpectedly burdensome. First of all, I had to think about what to write on the board beforehand. I also had to practice speaking in front of the students. At first, this took up a lot of my time. In the end, I had to put all my energy into my part-time job and studying. At first, I wanted to spend time with my friends in the sports club at college, but at the moment, I had to give up on that. To save money, avoided eating out. I tried not to use electricity and gas as much as possible. Richer even so, I was barely making ends meet. A few months after I started college, I realized how fortunate I had been. I didn't realize how hard it was to make money, but it wasn't all bad. I could study what I was interested in college. Compared to high school, there was an atmosphere of freedom. During my free time, I enjoyed taking a break with store-bought snacks. That's at my part-time job. I was happy when my students' test scores went up. It was a job for which the students would thank me. So even though it was a tough job, I was glad to have started it. I met Ivy Morgan, a girl my age. We became friends. Ivy was thinking of starting her own business. As a first step to make her dream come true, she was earning money by working as a part-time cram school teacher. I was drawn to her lovely personality and determination to achieve her goals. We eventually started dating. Ivy understood my situation, so she didn't frequently ask me out on dates or beg me for gifts. We spent much of our time at home watching DVDs and chilling. I was able to be myself and not become tense in front of her. That's why our relationship was manageable. Spring break arrived after hectic days. One day, Ivy suggested, "You can take a break from the part-time work and classes. Why don't you go visit your parents and take some time off?" Looking back during summer vacation, I had to work at the cram school. There were also special classes for students studying for college examinations over the New Year's vacations. So I had not been able to go visit them for almost a year. My parents wanted me to come home once in a while. I also wanted to see my parents' faces for the first time in a while, so I decided to visit them. I booked a cheap overnight bus, just in time for the day my dad was coming back to America. On the day of the bus reservation, I got on the bus without delay. I was asleep before I knew it, but when I arrived at the bus stop closest to my house and got off, I was truly exhausted. I decided to rest a little bit when I got home. I grabbed my carry-on luggage and headed to my parents' house. After a short walk, I saw my parents' house. Nothing seemed to have changed. I was somewhat relieved to see the familiar appearance of the house. When I entered the house, my mom welcomed me. "Hey Elias, how have you been?" I replied, "I'm good. My part-time job has been pretty tough, but I haven't gotten sick." It looked like my dad was still sleeping due to jet lag. I was also sleepy because the overnight bus arrived early in the morning. I decided to sleep until lunchtime. My room was left as it was. As soon as I lay down on the bed, I felt sleepy and dozed off. When it was almost time for lunch, my mom woke me up. I went to the living room and found my dad there. He looked at me and smiled.
It's been a long time. Kicking stalkers? How you doing, you in college?
I was also happy to see him after a long time.
I haven't failed a class, and I'm doing fine.
As with that, I sat by the table. The table was full of delicious food. There was salad, steak, and even cake for dessert.
It's been a year since we've been together as a family, so I guess I cooked so much.
Mom left happily too. I was hungry, so I decided to eat right away. Since I've been living alone, I had been relying on cheap frozen foods. So all of the food was a treat for me. While I was enjoying the food, Mom and Dad were watching me happily. It was a scene of a happy family. While we ate, we talked about many things, such as my life in college and my part-time work.
Oh, you get home today. If you're making so much money, you must have taken a plane, right?
Bucks no. I took a cheap night bus. A flight would be very expensive. I can't afford to spend that much on transportation.
Dad looked worried.
Are you receiving sufficient money? If you think it's not enough, we can send you a little bit more.
I was surprised. He sounded as if he had been sending money to me for a long time.
What do you mean? I haven't received anything.
My dad looked surprised at my words.
Wait a minute. Mr. Maper's conscious, Prippies? I asked your mom to transfer $2,000 to your account every month. I've crossed.
I looked at my mom. She looked pale. Dad asked her what was going on.
Hey, what's going on here? I transferred $2,000 to your account every month. Barisma's friendship. I told you to transfer that money to Elias's account. Are you sure in doing that?
Mom was silent for a time, but then she appeared to have given up.
I didn't transfer the money to Elias's account.
Dwayne!
Dad asked, and Mom told him a shocking truth.
I'm currently dating a young man. I used the money to date him.
Does that mean you were having an affair?
I said in horror, and she nodded.
I met this guy on social networking sites. He's unemployed and not receiving an education or vocational training, and has no money. So I was paying for his meals and hotels.
I couldn't believe it. Not only was I shocked that she was having an affair, but I couldn't believe she was using money intended for me. Why did you spend the money on such a person? I said in a low voice, and she made up excuses. He may be unemployed and not receiving education or training, but he is sweet. He is a little insecure, and I guess it tickled my maternal instinct. Then I heard a loud bang. It was my dad banging on the desk.
I want to hear about it. I'm reviving you. The yell echoed through the living room. The bleeding nerve birthday.
Wait, I'm sorry, but I don't want a divorce. Mom looked like she was about to cry and clutched at Dad. I'll never cheat on you again. I will end the relationship, so please forgive me.
How can I be that? I don't want a wife who cheats on me. You have been betraying your family for a long time. I can never trust you again.
Dad had no intention of forgiving her. The conversation went on, and it appeared like they would never reach an agreement. They decided to find time to talk again. Dad retreated to his room. Mom started cleaning up the dishes. There was still some meal left, but my appetite was long gone. I walked back to my room depressed. I was going to have a good time with my family, but it turned out to be the worst homecoming ever. I had no idea that a casual conversation could destroy my family. I wanted to think it was some kind of nightmare. We ate dinner separately. While I was eating dinner alone in the living room, Mom stopped by and urged me to return to my home because they were going to discuss the divorce the next day. I didn't want to stay at my parents' house, so I said yes. The next morning, I decided to go back to the apartment where I lived alone. As I walked out the front door, my dad saw me off.
From now on, I will transfer the money directly to your account. Shy. Don't worry about it. He said so.
The only thing I could hope for was that I would no longer have to worry about money. I wondered what would happen to my family. I returned to my apartment anxiously. Just a month later, I received a call from my dad informing me that they had divorced. When Dad checked my mom's bank book, he found it transferred to my mom's lover's account. Mom was giving him $2,000 a month, sometimes close to $3,000. I couldn't possibly understand how she could spend so much money on a person who was not her husband. I had no desire to understand either. I had never doubted that she was a kind mom protecting her family, so I was very disappointed. After the divorce was finalized, my mom returned to her parents' home. She had always been a housewife, so at first she said that she didn't want to work. But she was told by her parents that she had to earn minimum living expenses by herself. So it looked like she started working part-time reluctantly. In the end, after sacrificing her family to date the unemployed guy, she seems to have ended the relationship. Soon after, I received another call from my dad. I wondered what was going on, but it was a report that he had found a new girlfriend. It was a foreign woman he had met at his new post. He wanted me to meet her, so I returned to his home again. She was a beautiful Spanish woman. Her name was Grace. She told me that my dad had taught her some English, and she could speak some. Grace was cheerful and friendly at first glance. She was a good cook and made delicious hamburger stock. My dad told me that he and Grace might get married. I was not against it. I thought I could accept Grace as a new mom. I believed that my dad had the right to begin a new life as a married couple. But then, I overheard the most extraordinary conversation. I was asleep at night when I got up to go to the bathroom. It was late at night, but there was a light on in the living room. I heard my dad and Grace talking. I walked by the living room, wondering if they were still awake. I had to go through there to go to the bathroom. At that moment, I could clearly hear their conversation.
"It's been 5 years since we started dating," said Grace.
I was astonished to hear that. 5 years ago, my dad was still married to my mom. That meant that he was also having an affair. Suddenly, I felt heavy. I believed that at least my dad would not have an affair. I was shocked. I had thought we were a close family, but both my dad and mom were cheating on each other. I quickly entered the bathroom and hurried back to my room. I tried to fall asleep quickly and tried to forget the painful reality for a while, but Grace's words remained in my mind. I began to contemplate unanswered matters, such as the definition of true family. I could not sleep all night. The next morning, I didn't say anything to my dad or Grace. I knew that asking them questions in a strange way would not make anyone happy. I was afraid of destroying the family any further. One day, about 3 months later, my dad said,
I'm going back to the head office in America. I could live in America again. Miss Grace also decided to move in with me. U.S. me. Elias, would you like to live with us? It's far from the college, but I'm sure it's within commuting distance.
But after hearing those words, I had no intention of going back. Even though he was having an affair, he still sent me money. But I decided to continue my part-time job as before. I put all of the money into savings. There was a reason why I went this far to save money. I wanted to start a business with Ivy. Ivy considered offering a service to students in need by recycling furniture and other items. However, she didn't have enough money to start up and run the company. So, I invested in the company for Ivy. I was still a student, but I took the plunge and started my own business. Even though it was for her, it took a lot of determination to pay so much money for Ivy. However, I owed Ivy a debt of gratitude for her support. When I found out about my parents' infidelity and was feeling at rock bottom, Ivy noticed that I was not doing well, and she listened to me. Ivy understood my feelings very well. The truth is that Ivy's parents had also divorced because they had been cheating on one another.
I found out that my parents were having an affair. I was extremely shocked, too. I wondered what family and compatibility meant. I couldn't get it out of my head for a while.
In Ivy's case, this all happened when she was a senior in high school, busy with her entrance examinations. Prior to reporting to her, it was difficult for her to watch her parents fight while entirely disregarding her existence. I asked her how she got over it. I tried my best not to think about my family. Even though we were family, we were different. I decided that no matter how much I worried about it, there was nothing I could do about it. Besides, my life wasn't going to end just because my parents split up. I believed that as I grew up, I would be able to raise a happy family on my own. That's how I got over it. That was her answer. It may be a controversial opinion, but it made sense to me. I thought it was enough to have a minimal relationship with my parents. I put all my energy into supporting Ivy. At first, we could earn only a sparse income. I was almost discouraged at times, but neither Ivy nor I were half-hearted about our efforts. We rethought our advertising methods. We tried to cut costs where we could. We had many discussions until late at night. We also read books on management. As we continued without giving up, gradually, more and more people agreed with our idea, and we began to have friends helping us. The fact that a student had started a business also became a point of appeal, and we began to receive coverage in magazines and on TV. This was good publicity and brought in additional revenue. By the time I graduated from college, the business was on track. A few years had passed since our graduation. It had exceeded $1 million in sales. Additionally, we received many messages of gratitude from students. There were tough times, but we were able to endure because we believed we were helping someone. I didn't need to depend on my dad anymore because the company was doing well. After graduating from college, I didn't receive any money from him. I've been living on my own. Then, when I was 26 years old, I made a big decision. I decided to propose to Ivy. Ivy had always wanted to go to a fancy restaurant. I made a reservation there for Christmas and also prepared an engagement ring. On the day of the proposal, Ivy and I left work early and we headed to the restaurant. The food that came out was gorgeous and looked delicious. I was so nervous that I couldn't taste the food, but Ivy was enjoying it, and that was all that mattered. We finished eating dessert when it was time to go home. I have something important to tell you. At that, I took out the ring. I am convinced that you and I can build a happy family. Will you marry me? I wondered what would happen if I was rejected, but Ivy smiled and accepted the ring. I'm sure I can be a family with you. We'll be happy together. When she said that, I was filled with joy. Thank you. I promised to make you happy. Just then, the staff came by and left a cake on the table. On top of the cake was a chocolate plate with the words of congratulations. I was confused because I hadn't ordered something like that. Then, when you made the reservation, you said that you wanted to propose to your girlfriend, so we have taken the liberty of preparing it. That was what she said. I looked around and saw that many of the customers were looking at us smiling. I was a little embarrassed, but I was also happy that everyone seemed to be congratulating us. I was glad that I proposed to her at that restaurant. We then had a wedding, followed by a newborn boy. When we saw our newborn child, we promised to build a loving family for him so that he would not have to go through what we did. So with Ivy, I am sure we will be fine. We are resolved to look to the future and move forward.